Hey guys, Thomas Dceu Jr. here, aka Mustached, and welcome to my spoiler review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Once again, this is going to be a spoiler review, so if you do not want to be spoiled on a movie you've only already seen, but with added content because it's the cut, then, watch the movie on your own terms if you are already a Dceu fan. And if not, then I would say it's probably a good time to get out of the Dceu if you're not already invested in it. Anyways, with that being said, if you end up enjoying this review, then please consider going into the description. The second link will lead you to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. Now that the shilling is out of the way, let's talk about the spoiler version of Zack Snyder's Justice League review. So, here's the thing, and this is going to be my longest review / rant that will likely be on my channel. As there is a lot to get through in this movie review, I'm actually baffled that I went through my own feed of YouTube and seen reviews of this movie that are 10 minutes long. I'm assuming that those are spoiler reviews or spoiler free reviews of the movie. At least I would think so. 10 minutes is not enough to cover this movie, as this is a 4-hour movie. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, regardless if it's happened in the original or if it's been added. Regardless of that, I think before I can even touch this film, I owe it to the 1 or 2 people that will likely view this, or maybe 10 if I'm lucky, to re-explore really quickly my thoughts on the previous Dceu movies, as my thoughts have drastically changed on quite a few of them. Even at the time I'd seen Man of Steel, I think I remembered ranting about that one, but I think I do remember also slightly enjoying Aquaman and Wonder Woman. After re-evaluating under a more objective lens, I was able to see more fundamental flaws in those movies, and my enjoyment of them with that process in mind quite drastically dwindled. Wonder Woman 2 did not do any help to the Wonder Woman series. In fact, it made it a complete jumbled mess, more than it already needed to be. And this movie does even more harm to it, but we'll get to that in a moment. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Anyways, so the problem with this movie that I haven't even started talking about yet is that the setup to this movie is based off of a bunch of movies, I want to say 4 or 5 of them at this point, that pre-exist behind this, that aren't that good, objectively speaking. Now, I'm not saying you can't enjoy them on a subjective level. In fact, I'd probably argue, at least on a subjective level, I think I would probably still enjoy Aquaman, as objectively flawed the movie is. I remember that movie being quite enjoyable anyway, but again, from a more subjective point of view, I felt that it was more enjoyable to watch, but there wasn't enough objective quality to say that it was a good film. Those are two completely different statements. And because of this movie is literally connected to the events right after Batman vs. Superman, and the movie literally starts with the events ending from Batman vs. Superman, the last events, even included, aren't that good. I mean, the fight is okay from what I can remember from Batman vs. Superman. I remember the fight being relatively shortish, uh, but semi-enjoyable, though it still has plenty of issues when you actually start to break it down, again, from a more objective standpoint, instead of just an enjoyable fight. Um, so yes, the problem with this movie, even when it was originally released just as Justice League, was that the building blocks around the movie were fundamentally flawed. Thus, I always felt like asking for the Zack Snyder cut was completely unnecessary. I don't think asking for a longer movie was going to fix what came before. And that's absolutely correct. This movie cannot literally fix what came before. In fact, again, it makes Wonder Woman in particularly a little bit worse. And again, that deals with her first movie and what's presented in this movie. Um, and I don't remember it being in the original Justice League, so this movie actually brings up more problems. And as I delve deeper into the events, going through the monotony of it, I think it's a good time to start to ask, is the DCEU still worth investing in? And I think the answer is no. I really think people need to stop supporting stuff like this. And I know that that's not going to happen because people are fanboys and they'll support anything and blah blah blah. But I want to take it from an objective standpoint still. I want to clarify that this movie is broken. It is built on broken material, therefore it is in itself broken, and it cannot stop being broken. It has good elements added into it, but again, it's based on broken content. And I think one thing I've stated time and time again in my reviews is that if you do want to support DC, I would more likely recommend the animated movies over the live action movies, and allow for the DCEU to be rebooted. If you are really invested in a live action Justice League, I seriously think it is time to reboot, instead of looking forward to what the end of this movie is trying to offer us. Because it's built on fundamental brokenness. It's built on superheroes are just not that well written, and that is a shame. As someone who's written a superhero team-based book, it's a real shame that even though my book is objectively bad, that I feel that this is objectively worse. And this has a lot of money put into it. I imagine the original did as well. And the fact that I can even help make that statement is kind of embarrassing to me. I mean, I'm not exactly a rich person in any regard. In fact, I always plead for Patreon help because I'm in the lower end of being like on the brinking, just needing of help. Anyway. So yes, with that all out of the way, I do say that the DCEU is in need of again, rebuilding of the blocks, rebuilding of the characters, because this is not how you do it. And asking for this next Zack Snyder cut, also kind of a waste of time. But we are here to also look at the good elements. I'm not here to completely bash on the movie. There are good elements in here, which is even more of a shame, I feel like. But we're going to get there. And notice that I'm already at 10 minutes and this review hasn't even begun. So, let's get into it, shall we? So the movie, as I explained, does indeed begin with the death of Superman, a grim reminder of a bad film. Yes, the way they handled Superman's death is utterly stupid. It was stupid back when Batman vs. Superman tried to really convince us that chucking a spear and needing it to fly into, Jesus Christ, I'm already forgetting his name. Big rock guy. Sorry, I'm blanking on his name, so remember it later and be mad at myself. Anyway, that always came across as really stupid. I remember, again, comparing it directly to the animated version, I remember his death being a little bit, making a bit more sense in that version from what I can recall. It has been a while, so I don't want to keep comparing too much. Anyways, so all of that finally plays out. Superman sends this shockwave of pure pain that he is feeling, and the waves burst out throughout the entire world and somehow even manage to spread to the other worlds, including Atlantis and Wonder Woman's location, Mascara? I forget what it's called exactly. Anyway. But we also cut to Cyborg waking up in his abode with this little cube thingy going nuts. So, the movie is going to present 3 cubes. One that is in the human world, one that is in Atlantis, one that is in Mascara, and this is the objective of the bad guy in this case. The MacGuffin is something that the bad guy wants. These cubes, I'll explain them later. But for the time being, we know that there is at least one cube thing that is going nuts. But we are also seeing that the other cubes are also going nuts after that little short sequence. And we see that the Amazons, again, are getting ready to attack whatever is going to be coming out of the cube. Their cube shatters first. Meanwhile, we cut to Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, who meets up with Aquaman, who's also aka Author. And out of all the superheroes, I would say Batman is the least damaged from the material that they gave him in his movie pre-existing to this. Now, that is not a high bar, mind you, because as I mentioned, all of their movies are objectively bad, including the ones with this version of Batman. So yeah, not really a high bar. So anyways, for whatever reason, I'm assuming based off of one of Batman's dream sequences, he knows that there's evil afoot that is outside coming in, and yeah, that always confused me even when I first saw this. Why does Batman get these visions exactly? I still really don't know. Is it because he used the key to stopping Superman? Question mark? I don't know. Anyway, that aside, so Batman does what he does best, or one of the things he does best, and uses his money to try to buy the influence of Aquaman's help. And as Batman kind of gulks away, he mentions how he's been fighting for Gotham for 20 years. So this is a more experienced and gruff Batman, as this movie implies. It's too bad that those movies don't exist in this universe, in the DCEU anyway, because as far as I was concerned, the other Batman ones, the other Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, was separated from this as far as I understood it to be. I always thought that they were going to retell Batman's story, as unnecessary as that might have felt, but in the sense of connecting it to the DCEU, that's probably what they should have went for anyway, but they never did it, so missed chance, I guess. Oh well. Anyway, so Aquaman fucks off to the water, and the people start mysteriously singing for some reason. And comes one of the very first, or secondary problems, is that there are earlier scenes in this movie that are added on, 3 that I counted, where there's random music pop-ins with these slow-mos with people either singing or moving that seem to just eat a bit of time, which is completely baffling considering this is a 4-hour movie and you're completely wasting time. In a 4-hour movie, like, you have a chance to really get out a lot here, and you're really gonna put in useless scenes? Why? This is one of the next issues of the Zack Snyder cut. Nonetheless, we move on to Mama Kent, aka Martha, who got done visiting Kent's grave and is moving along with her work. Anyways, we cut then to Alfred, who makes a quick jab at Bruce, saying that he isn't the best at recruiting people, considering what just happened. And thus, we then cut to Lois, who is visiting the Superman memorial, the one that it broke down. Now again, this is one of the things that is fundamentally broken about the movie, is that the version of Superman we have, again, is based off of Man of Steel, which isn't a good movie. It doesn't represent Superman in the best possible light, and it doesn't even make sense with its own themes that it's trying to persuade, and it is also a jumbled mess. A completely jumbled mess. So yeah, there are a lot of issues here. And they're all coming from things that are happening before. And again, this keeps bringing back the issue of the building blocks not being well built. The bridge is incomplete, or the puzzle pieces are from different puzzle pieces that aren't connecting well. And that is, again, to the movie's detriment, and it was in the original version, and it remains in this version as well. There's nothing that can be done to help this. So anyways, so after that little nonsense of being that, we get some generic bad guys who are getting ready to steal or blow up a bank. It is implied that they are willing to go back to the old world, whatever that means. And for a second there, I thought that the thief guy, the main one, looked a little bit like someone who could have played Lex Luthor for whatever reason. Now, I will get to that as well. Yes, Jesse Eisenberg does rekindle his role as Lex Luthor, but that doesn't imply until the end of the movie. And I will say, why didn't they just give this Lex Luthor... They give him this version of Lex Luthor in the previous installments? It's completely baffling. Like, he has the whole suit and everything, and they were all. I know that they were trying to go for, he becomes the Lex Luthor that we know and are intimidated by or whatever. And he does look the part a little bit closer in this version, though I always found him to be out of place, at least, again, in Batman vs. Superman. And one thing that I immediately thought of as an actor replacement was Vin Diesel, someone who's already bald, who's buff, who's tall, who could rock the suit probably. And I know Vin Diesel is a really good actor. Like, say what you will about Fast and Furious and, those movies, but he's been in plenty of other stuff that I know he's done really good work in. So, again, that was the immediate actor I thought at the time could have played Lex Luthor, but they went with Jesse Eisenberg for Batman vs. Superman, and they maintained him, and I will say that they did a better job with it just being Lex Luthor. I think that just nixes the problem of, we didn't need to see how Lex Luthor became Lex Luthor. That doesn't make any sense. He should have always been Lex Luthor. Like, why do you have to fit into the identity that you already should be? Doesn't make sense, now does it? And again, that's the thing, is that, like, Jesse Eisenberg in Batman vs. Superman feels like a completely different character that now feels like a little bit closer to Lex Luthor. It doesn't feel like a transition, it feels like a completely separate character. So anyways, with that out of the way, so the police see that this is going on, but they hold their fire with there being kids in the building. However, Wonder Woman is already on the roof of the building and works her way inside. So she barges in, and time slows down as it does for a lot of Zack Snyder films, and she manages to block all the bullets and slides across. It looks a little wonky still. I'm not sure why they keep trying to do it, but it still looks a little wonky. Anyway, so she flies off, throws the bomb upward, and it blows up. And again, as I mentioned before, Wonder Woman's character is all over the place. She is an incoherent superhero from the first two movies that she's featured in solo, and it's hard to follow. And again, this movie does more damage to her character, even more, and that's baffling to me. Anyways, well, as I mentioned, we'll get to that in a bit. So, she does her armor clang thing, and only the bad guy is blown up, even though it shows a big explosion. Color me confused. How she's able to direct such an explosion on one person and leave the kids just fine, but whatever. So, her scene is good, or at least her first scene is, even though it's a little wonky still, it's, it's action-y, and, anyway. So, we cut back to the Amazons, and the Queen of the Amazons, and their box being turned off, and then it, flashes back on, and they prep up as the parademons, or for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call them demons, because I'm going to be mentioning them a lot, and shortening things is going to be a little helpful here, so stay with me. Anyways, the demons appear from somewhere, and they start to attack, and the Amazons and demons clash. The leader, Steppenwolf, who looks slightly different and still armored up, attempts to grab the box. But the queen slides out, and they try to break the entire building off, but that isn't enough. So Steppenwolf, along with his fellow demons, fly out and start to head towards them. They try to keep the box at bay. However, Steppenwolf and his army are moving in, and they're killing more and more Amazons, and eventually grab the first box. The movie literally cuts to black and claims that we are now at part 2. which is, I don't remember that actually happening in the original Justice League, so I don't know what the point of it is. They could have just cut to the next scene, but whatever. So anyways, the leader, the queen, uses a magical bow and arrow that she sends towards Wonder Woman, or towards a location where Wonder Woman will eventually pick it up or know of it. So, Steppenwolf, we actually get to learn a bit more about this character. Apparently, he betrayed Darkseid, who is the main villain who we don't fight in this movie, but we know that he's coming at the end of it. Again, this is a spoiler review, so I really don't care about saying that right now. But, again, it is a little good that they at least tried to give Steppenwolf a bit more something to his character. After all, from what I can recall from the original version, he was just bad guy. So at least they gave him a more submissive role. He's still a bad guy, but he's trying to prove his worth to Darkseid. And now we understand that, thanks to this new added scene. So, again, I'm always willing to say when there are good things happening in the movie. Again, it is just terrible that it's attached to terrible things. So anyways, Batman wants to keep his promise to Superman to build this team. And Alfred is there, looking at some footage of Flash zipping and zapping about. Anyways, we cut to this factory where the science lab and this janitor who works there. And as he's cleaning up, he's spotted by one of the demons who grabs him and presumptuously kills him. It's off screen, so... Anyways, as I mentioned, the arrow was shot, and Wonder Woman is able to see this on the news from where she works at her little, I guess it's a museum of sorts, from what I can recall. So she gets the news that way, fine, whatever. It's a little clunky, but whatever. It's not the end of the world by any means. So anyways, the government owns or has possession of this Superman chip. I forgot how they obtained it, but whatever. They just have it now. And the man, or one of the people there that witnessed this, appears to draw what looks like Batman, even though he was supposedly drawing the demon. So that was a little nice touch to say that Batman looks very demon, even though he's a Batman. So we cut to Victor, aka Cyborg, who is very upset with his father that he did this whole operation on him. Now, I don't know how I feel about Cyborg yet, because his movie doesn't exist yet, and it's going to be really hard to place him now. I mean, they can't have a movie presumptuously before this, right? Because he was made during the events of the Justice League, so having a sort of setup movie, this is his setup movie, which is odd, to say the very least. I don't know why they did it this way, even in the original, I always felt. They fleshed out his background even more, with him being a football player, and he was already sort of a hacker character, but he was hacking for the side of good. Apparently some person lost their home or something, so they were having trouble at school, so that he was trying to hack his way into giving them a better grade so that they could stick with it. And I don't know, because Flash, also being the only other character who doesn't have a movie in the DCEU yet, he's a bit awkward. I remember him trying to be funny. The level of his comedy does seem a little bit more subdued than I remember it being. And the little jabs here and there that they have are, they're okay. There aren't anything that is groundbreaking by any means. But I always felt like Cyborg should have leaned a little bit closer to the Teen Titans version, and I know that's probably stupid of me to ask, considering that this is a different version of Cyborg anyway. I don't know. I think his backstory would have had a bit more fleshed out stuff, material to work with, if he actually did come from the Teen Titans. That actually would have been really interesting, and then you already have Robin set up for you with that, so there's that. So I don't know why they didn't have that happen, but I guess, again, they went for a very different version of Cyborg for whatever reason. And the version we have here is okay. That's the best I can say. It's okay. And that's not even on my good level. That's okay. It's one step below good for me, if you're wondering. And Flash's too. It's so baffling, is that in this movie, he does seem okay. Again, Aquaman, he's a bit dulled down from what I can recall as well. And thus the entire team seems very well too close together, and I don't feel like that's a very interesting team to follow. Because they almost are compacted into one mesh of, like, seriousness, and I don't feel like that's good. Again, there are hints of Flash being awkward, so, again, I'm giving him that much. And Cyborg, I can't really say that for him. Anyway, getting back to it, into the events of the movie. So, as I mentioned, Cyborg is upset with his dad. Wonder Woman sees the arrow, and she goes towards it and picks it off and starts to check out these ruins placed below. This is some ancient Amazonian temple that was left in the human world for reasons. She places the arrow there, and she's shown a visual representation of their war against Darkseid in the 3 cubes. So anyways, we cut back to Bruce struggling, pretending to be some random fisherman, and Aquaman comes in for the save, offering to have Bruce pay for it because he knows he can at this point. We cut to another unnecessary scene where Lois is walking and music is playing. This is another one of those scenes that I was mentioning before, the thing with Aquaman, where this music is popping up and someone is doing something and they're just walking in this instance and music is playing over it. It's completely unnecessary. Completely could have cut it. Nothing would have been lost. Moving right along. So Aquaman swims to, I guess, the former king, ? And he's visited by some guy named Valko, played by the guy who played Green Goblin. Trying to remember his name off the top of my head. In my notes I wrote the guy who plays Green Goblin. I'm sorry. I should have wrote his name down. It's completely blanking on me. And he does an alright job. I actually forgot if he was in the original Aquaman or not. So that just shows me how forgettable that character kind of was, if he was an Aquaman. Anyways, he's trying to present this trident, or say that Aquaman needs to take up the trident, and he's like, nah, I'm good. Anyways, we cut to Steppenwolf, who calls one of Darkseid's higher recruits, I guess. I don't know who this guy is, but he's like, yeah, you're not cool. Anyway, we see that Steppenwolf is begging to rejoin and be at Darkseid's side. And that continues on. And all the while, Wonder Woman checks in on Bruce. They have, I think this is where they have a bit of a flirtatious moment between the two of them, which makes sense, even though they seem to have an oddity of picking and choosing what they want to take from the comics, because I know that Wonder Woman and Bruce have a thing in the comics, or in one of the other animated movies. So it's weird that they'll pick something out like that, but again, change Cyborg, for example. Again, this very weird pick and choose is something that always baffled me, at least for this, when they have plenty of material to pick out from. Anyways, so now that we have that, we learned that thanks to Wonder Woman, and this is where this comes in, Darkseid had apparently invaded the world, or one of the worlds, apparently it was Earth, according to her, once before. And once the three cube MacGuffins combine together, they make one thing called a unity. And I'm going to say it now, that is a terrible name for an object that is supposedly supposed to destroy humanity, or at least make it more like the world that Darkseid comes from. Yeah, Unity probably should have thought of a better name than that. Anyway, so there are many forces coming in to stop the demons. According to Wonder Woman's story, all of them came together. We even see a Green Lantern in the flashback as well, and a mighty fight commence. And bafflingly, apparently one of the warriors that was a part of this little scene was Ares, which is a complete head-scratcher, because he's the main villain of Wonder Woman 1. So how is it that he went from being the villain, once a apparent hero who, whisked away, or helped whisk away Darkseid, to becoming a villain? How exactly did that happen? Yeah, it's not explained here, and I highly doubt they will ever explain why that would make any sense, so we're left with Ares apparently just decided to make a 180 at one point. Okay, well, there goes even more nonsense that makes Wonder Woman even more confusing. Thanks, Justice League and Zack Snyder. Thanks for that one. Anyway. So, we have our unity that is happening, and this war that they managed to beat Darkseid at this point in time, or Steppenwolf, I should say. And the heroes of old split the three boxes as we know them to be. This is where we cut to part 3. And we cut to the introduction of Barry, aka The Flash, who flashes around after trying to apply to some food or animal shelter. He sees a woman that he's attracted to, and he notices that a truck is about to crash into her car, and it does so. So he does his thing and uses the Speed Force, or the whatever he calls it, and tumbles her to safety in the slowdown time. in that he is able to zip back to the location of the dogs and make sure that he's unnoticed, at least to the woman in that store. And we have some more music that plays during this. At least something a little bit more interesting is happening, so I can say that is happening at the very least. So yeah, he does his little job interview, and meanwhile, Steppenwolf makes his next appearance to start to drag out some Atlanteans and trying to get some information out of them. Now, this is how this works. Apparently, the demons can sort of feel when a person has been near the cube, and once they know that, they use this spider thing that is able to cling to someone's head mind space, and that reveals the location of the next MacGuffin piece. It's a little bit nonsensical, but I guess they need to get to the next one eventually. So yeah. Alright. So now we're moving on to my notes part 2, because boy was writing notes for this a slog. So, as they are continuing to watch Bruce and Wonder Woman who return to the base, they see that they're watching the footage and trying to figure out, okay, how do we actually get these other people to join us? Then we cut back to Victor Stone in a flashback, his cyborg. He's playing a football game. It's in typical Zack Snyder slowdown, whatever. It's probably one of the least necessary slowdowns since it's only a football game, but whatever. Anyways, he notices that his dad didn't even come, and as his mom is trying to calm him down, their vehicle gets hit, and the mother was lost, and Cyborg obviously was injured to the point of the state that he ended up being revived in. And I guess this is the point where I mention it. Cyborg, I remember even in the original movie, the original Justice League, did look a little bit weird. And I don't think they did a lot to help that in this movie. He does definitely still look a little bit weird. There's something about the way that his mechanisms are all aligned that just looks a little wonky, I guess. It's hard to make out. Definitely, for sure. Which is weird because, again, if we're making another what if they made it look like the original Cyborg design? Again, I'm not sure why they didn't do it, because that design in it of itself does seem a little bit more sleek and a lot less to do. Like, I don't know why they didn't go for it. It looks like they tried to do too much to his mechanical mechanisms, and it just looks very busy and wonky, and it's hard to make out. And he even has a little face cover that covers the rest of his face. Again, it just looks really weird. Anyway, apparently, he's being told that with this power-up, he's able to hack into anything, even if there is something a part of his older memories, that he can access it. If there was a camera at that point in time, then he can access that memory via that way. And he's able to look back at something else. And when he comes back to, he sees that there's another family in need. This mother and these two kids, one who's in a wheelchair, so he decides to hack the machine and get them a little bit of extra money. And they are very grateful, obviously. But as he returns home, one of the demons is very close by. So he's at least aware that these things are out and about, but he doesn't know about the rest of the stuff that is happening yet. Anyways, we then cut back to Flash, who's talking to his dad, who apparently got misplaced in prison, or was prisoned in wrongly, according to Flash. And he's trying to promise that he'll get into the police work to try to figure out what really happened. So he gets to his base, where he hangs out, and Bruce Wayne is already there. And he's trying to goat Flash into revealing himself, so he throws a batarang, and Flash is able to figure out that he's Batman from there, obviously. And as soon as Bruce does the invitation, Flash quickly joins in. So, while that's going on, Wonder Woman is hanging out with Alfred for a little bit. Just give me a minute. Lost my notes here. Sorry, again, a lot to go over. Okay, there we go. So they have a little scene together, and she ends up looking for Cyborg. But in the process of doing so, he hacks her search and says, "Come look for me here." So they meet up, and Wonder Woman is trying to convince him to join, and he says the pretty baffling line of "fuck the world." Again, I don't even know why they could have... I felt like that was completely unnecessary for him to go that far, considering... I know he's lost and gone through pain, but to go that far does seem a bit excessive. Extremely excessive. This is a stupid line, Zack Snyder. What the fuck? I'm sorry, but no. Just no. No. Just no. Anyway. Outside of that really stupid line, he's trying to bear with it as Wonder Woman, as I mentioned, explains her past and what she's gone through, yada yada yada. So he tries to hide the box that he has in the grave as he flies off on his own. And the dad returns to see that the house is a mess, and one of the demons spots this little thing going on. We cut to a new edition with Gordon, now played by J.K. Simmons, which she is J.K. Simmons' fantastical add-on and a fantastical actor who just does Gordon really well. Like, holy fuck. Like, he does, he's the perfect J. Jonah Jameson. He's a really good Gordon as well. Like, holy fuck. Impressive shit, man. So anyways... So he puts on the Bat logo, and Barry sees it as well. However, while all that's going on, the Atlantis box awakens, and the Queen there checks it out and is prepping. Steppenwolf appears, as per usual, and attacks, but Aquaman is already there and decides to get him away from the box, or at least try to. But Steppenwolf, after a tussle, manages to get the box and leaves. So the Queen tells Aquaman that he needs to go get the box back, obviously, and he's finally like, fine. So anyways, Cyborg returns home and also sees the symbol when he looks up, the bat signal. So anyways... Now we know that Steppenwolf has one box to go, and it's the human-based box. So we cut to part 4. So, Batman, joined by Wonder Woman, and now Flash, all join up with Gordon on the roof, and after a few minutes, Cyborg also joins them on the roof, and the four of them, along with Gordon, begin to explain the situation and where they need to go. And where they need to go is Stryker Island. So they go to Stryker Island. And Cyborg rushes in first, as they get ready to try to tackle on some demons, and he sees that his father is there, Even though he hated his father before, he decided to suddenly be like, hey, my father's pretty cool, I guess, and attacks. Again, this sort of switch thing that tends to be in these movies, like in Man of Steel, is present even in Cyborg. So I can already say I'm not ever going to be confident in a solo Cyborg film, especially if it's going to be written by Zack Snyder. Because we often get these themes that are battling each other quite often. Anyways, enough with that. So they're attacking, and Batman joins in as well, and Steppenwolf is taking them on one by one. Batman is struggling, and eventually he asks for this crawler machine, which Alfred helps with, and Flash also tries to zip along the walls to help Wonder Woman out, but he stumbles and falls as he's not really paying too much attention to his surroundings. So Cyborg joins back into the fight, and Flash gets attacked as well. But Wonder Woman comes in for the quick assist. And once that Steppenwolf sees all of this fighting back, Steppenwolf decides to go on and fuck off. So the water is coming in, and they're getting ready to be submerged, but Aquaman just happens to know their location somehow. So he swims on in and helps them out. So Cyborg, again, goes off ahead. And as the others manage to escape as well, he touches to the cube to get this vision. So Cyborg goes to get the last box, which he was the one who hid. Now apparently there's another MacGuffin, the thing called the Anti-Life, which is something else, I guess, and has also just happened to be hidden on Earth, according to Steppenwolf. And Darkseid finally appears, at least in the background of his world. So as Cyborg and the others are talking, he's talking more about his past and how he was built like how he was to the Flash, and how the father used that very box to bring him back to life. As soon as he finishes the story, they kind of start to wonder if they could bring Superman back the very same way. Thus, they proceed to do so. Anyways, we cut to Martha, who visits Lois. She's worried about Lois, and I do admit that these two actually do a better job of what they were doing in Batman vs. Superman. It does feel like they were given better instructions for these scenes. I think they're new. But it ends up being when Martha leaves that it transforms into the Martian Manhunter. So now we know that the Martian Manhunter's in this movie. And you might be wondering, well, why isn't the Martian Manhunter been helping them? Well, it turns out that he has not decided yet that he wants to help humanity. Fuck off, Zack Snyder. What the fuck is this? Ugh. Why is every superhero written so terribly? I don't know. At least in the DCEU, why is this always the case? Why are we doing this? I don't get it. Anyway, they arrive at the graveyard where they go to pick up Ken's grave. And Alfred talks with Batman as a team talk about stuff. So they plan to also take him back to his ship, which means they need to sneak into the base where the Superman ship is being held. So Barry hides his identity using a disguise that they somehow have, question mark. And Cyborg helps with the hacking into the device to get them the clear in. That makes a bit more sense since they already established that he can hack into anything. But they did not establish how Barry got that outfit. He just has it somehow. Anyways, they clear out the building using a biohazard fake-out, but the father sees this and tries to get them to get back to work, but then sees the superheroes walk in and decides to let them pass. So they head deeper into the ship, and meanwhile, Lois grabs her something as we cut back to her. So the last box awakens as they are trying to proceed to do this. We get a quick glimpse of something Cyborg sees, I think. This terrible vision where we see everything, Wonder Woman dead or something, and I didn't actually write down everything, but we see Darkseid wheeling over, and again, Cyborg doesn't say anything about this. Just talk. Just talk. Just saying, why would you keep that to yourself is baffling beyond any recognition, but whatever. Here we are. So Flash proceeds to do a super speed thing, where he turns back the time just a bit ago, as he touches the cube, which, when combined into the water juice stuff that Superman has put in, he's brought back to life. But as they get outside and Cyborg notices that the Superman's acting a little bit odd, his little functionality is forced into attack mode and he attacks. Which is, I don't know why it's set that way, but whatever. So Superman attacks the Justice League, and this is, yes, included in the original version, but he's clearly very dead set on heading towards Batman. But before he can arrive to Batman, Lois manages to get him to get back to normal. So the two of them fly off and leave the others to whatever. But since they did this, they know that Steppenwolf is going to arrive, so he does. So anyways, the father tries to take the box and move it, thinking that he will do something with the box to heat it up, and he sacrifices his life in the process. So they discover that when it was heated, that it would make a very clear marking to where the location was, because they did not know this entire time where the location was. But now that it's superheated, Batman says to look for oddities in heat, thus they are able to pinpoint the location. So we cut back to Superman, who takes Lois back to the Kent house, and they chill there for a bit. Cyborg claims that he wants to fuse with the boxes. Apparently, this is his best way of dealing with this. Whatever that was going to mean. That never actually happens, by the way. But whatever. Anyways, Superman notices the ring and says yes to Lois, and Martha also returns, so they're happily reunited. So Batman talks to Barry very briefly, and they get to their little ship and move on out. So now that the three cubes are united, the unity is formed. And as Superman is getting ready, as he kind of makes his way off back to the be wherever, he hears both of his father's voices call out to him and They all say all the positive things I noticed in this version, and they take out all the negative things, the uncertainties that one of the fathers said in Man of Steel. Good on you for that one, but I know that you were trying to hide all that negative nonsense that was in the original Man of Steel. You can't remove it just because you didn't use it. Anyways, out of all the suits, because he's in his ship now, that Superman decides to suddenly use is the black suit. And thus goes into the air and does the Jesus T-pose in front of the sun to make it its bitch. And dominate over the world as the Jesus H. Christ. So, dumb symbolism and unnecessary symbolism aside, we go back to Batman, who goes off getting ready to take down this base. And the team, also the Justice League, as I'll refer to it now, as they're all there, except Superman, are all prepping up. And when they arrive, Batman takes the offensive on the tower and is able to start luring out the demons and attacking them. The rest of the Justice League join in the battle. And slowly but surely, Batman is losing more of his equipment. He loses one of his machines, but manages to grapple away. All while this is happening, Superman flies off and manages to visit Alfred first, which, okay. Alfred says, I hope you're not too late. Whatever. So, okay. So Superman's not there quite yet. Anyways, Aquaman and Cyborg are the first two to see Steppenwolf, and Wonder Woman joins them briefly after. So Cyborg's trying to do his connecting bullshit and is grabbed, so he's not able to, and Flash is doing his run around thing. So Wonder Woman helps Aquaman out. There's a lot of action here going on, and Cyborg manages to grab the box once again. And this is where Superman arrives, just in the nick of time, as Steppenwolf was about to do the same thing again. This time Superman blocks him. And of course, Superman once again bitches down on that Steppenwolf, because of course he does. However, outside, Flash is shot down, so that whole thing is a no-go. Or at least there's a slightly different alternate version of that. Anyway, so we see that the portal is being opened, and we see Darkseid in his full attire getting ready. So, as this is happening, we see an explosion set out from the Unity, and we see a bunch of stuff getting ready to get annihilated. It's doing its thing. It's getting ready to copy the planet and kill everyone and turn them into demons. But Flash does his thing, where he, goes so fast that he just vibrates in place, and starts to run even faster, fast enough to turn back time. He manages to reach Cyborg and help power him up, and thus he's able to start separating the three cubes. He asks for Superman's help, and Superman is indeed able to help with the rest of the removal of the three cubes. Thus, as they remove the three cubes, they all start to attack in a triple attack on Steppenwolf, Wonder Woman getting the final head strike on Steppenwolf as his body, separated now from his head, reaches Darkseid, who kindly steps on his head. So, Darkseid says that he is not done yet, and that he will make his way back to the Earth, but he will do it the old way. So, as the movie reaches its final moments, the six stand together, united. And thus we cut to the epilogue. Because of course there is an epilogue. They're trying to very clearly set up what's happening next, as I mentioned earlier on in this review. So Cyborg repairs the tape that he made, and he listens to the rest of the notes that his dad sent him. Aquaman goes to visit his dad. Wonder Woman and Batman are looking for a location to set up the Justice League building. And, he's like setting up the building for 6, but, it's big, so they make the whole, well, there's room for more. Obviously, we know that the Justice League gets pretty big. The Flash gets his job. Everything is looking aces on that front. Bruce pays for the Kent's house, which, by the way, that was a thing in this movie where Martha lost her house. So Bruce helped out with that, buying the bank. Cyborg flies over and visits his family's grave, and then flies off. And we see the bat signal come up. We see Wonder Woman hold on to her arrow, and we see the Flash running and being super happy. And Superman does his little fly-off thing as well. Then we cut to the prison, where we learn that Lex Luthor has somehow managed to escape prison. And we pull out to a yacht where we see a bald Lex Luthor, again, played a little bit better this time by Jesse Eisenberg. He seems to have gotten a little bit better direction this time around. And he's visited by Deathstroke. So we cut to what I'm assuming is a future vision that Batman is having. So Batman is once again in that brown coat that we saw him see in the Batman vs. Superman movie. We see that he's with Cyborg, who's has this brown thing over him for whatever reason. He takes it off, so that was kind of pointless. Aqua Lady, as I'll refer to her as she claims that apparently Arthur, aka Aquaman, has been killed. And the other figure who is there, I'm assuming the Deathstroke, that was Deathstroke, the one with the eye patch, and Flash is also there with a beard. And the last person who is there, though, is the Joker. Not damaged anymore. And he's talking up Batman. And he mentions how Lois died. So they're already spoiling how that's all gonna play out. What's gonna apparently lead to this little thing is Lois dies. Superman gets so angry that he's gonna turn evil. They're gonna go that route. So yeah, Bruce wakes up from this little thing, and as he answers the door to the person that's there, we see that Martian Manhunter finally decides that, you know what, humanity's worth fighting for, so I'm also gonna join the battle. Thanks, Martian Manhunter. And he flies off, and that is the end. As he flies off, we cut to credits, and that was Zack Snyder's Justice League. This was an hour review of going over why this movie is built off of things that are fundamentally broken, has some good elements that were added in, some slight improvements and to even some of the actors added in, or improvement again with, like, say, Jesse Eisenberg's performance improved. From what I can tell, even Joker seemed a little bit improved. He seemed fine-ish. I don't remember his performance in Suicide Squad because they cut him from the majority of it, so I barely remember what his character was supposed to be in that movie, so I don't know. I do think that Joker has potential. Because they never gave him the time of day in Suicide Squad, so I never knew what that Joker's potential was. We see a little bit more of it here. He gets at Bruce mocking him to the point of saying that Batman says that he's going to kill Joker once this is all said and done. And again, the movie ends, and Joker also implies that he already killed, not Batman, Robin. So he already killed Robin, apparently. So this is the problem, is that there's a lot of stuff that's happening in this little sequence based off of material we don't have in the DCEU. Joker, and up until this point, has not killed anyone as far as I'm aware, unless, I mean, they show the whole, but we never get that movie. That's the problem, is that the Joker already did that damage, but we don't see that movie. It doesn't exist. So there's nothing there. It's based off of nothing. And the puzzle pieces that are equipped to make this movie, again, are just broken. And because of that, I can't in good faith even give this movie on itself a good score. Because it's built on other things that are required that aren't either there or are broken in their individual parts. And together, they don't equate to something I would want to see continued, because it's going to be continued based off of a broken foundation. And if you continue on from a broken foundation, you're going to just continue to be broken. And that's exactly what this movie was, and still is, even with the 4-hour Zack Snyder cut. So again, I ask, what was the point of this? Why did people ask for this? It's completely unnecessary. It doesn't matter what time code you add, what pieces you try to fix. You can try to fix the movie independently, which I can say the scenes that were added in are appreciated, sure, but as an entirety, as a film, it is built off of something that is a mess. The DCEU is an objective mess. There's nothing that can be said to fix it now. And again, I have to reaffirm my position. I think it's time to reboot the DCEU instead of trying to ask for Zack Snyder's whatever movie that they're planning here with this little ending sequence. So, to give this movie a score, the highest I can give it, in good faith, with all the elements that were added, a 3 out of 10. That's as high as I can go. That is as high as I am willing to go, and that's as high as it probably should go, if you're looking at it from an objective standpoint. Again, it's based off of a broken foundation. How can I in good faith give this movie a 7 or an 8 out of 10, which it had the potential to be, but it's based off of material that is not even at a 5 out of 10. Wonder Woman is not at a 5 out of 10 objectively. Aquaman is not a movie that is 5 out of 10 objectively. Batman vs. Superman is not a 5 out of 10 objectively. Man of Steel is not a movie that is 5 out of 10 objectively. All of these movies fall under that score. And if all of those movies fall under that score, then this movie is affected by all of those movies, which makes the score highly incapable of even reaching a 5 out of 10 as an entirety, because it is part of something else. That is how sequels work. You cannot independently say, oh, the sequel should stand on its own. That doesn't make any coherent sense. That's not how sequels work. Sequels are an extension of the first part. I think people start to forget that that's what sequels are meant to be sometimes. So yes, 3 out of 10. I would not recommend watching this movie, even if you are a DC fan. And I say that because, again, I think it is time to start to ask for a reboot, and even more so, I would actually rather people try to support something new at this point. We've given the DC heroes plenty of time. We've given Marvel plenty of time. And yes, I even said that my book Syndicate X is an objective bad book, but I would still like people to give it a chance. I am reworking on editing it and republishing it, even though I'm terrified to. But I think it's time we had some new, fresh superheroes to give a chance to. I've been fighting for this for so long, and I thought I'd just take the end of this review to re-emphasize that that's something that I've been meaning to try to push a little bit more on. So if you managed to make it this far into this 1 hour 15-minute review and so on and so forth, then at least give the book a chance if you feel up to it. I probably won't make any money because I don't know, it's complicated, but whatever. So yeah, 3 out of 10 for Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think that's as fair as I can be. Again, I can say that the action scenes towards the end, which are already in the movie anyways, were as good as they were going to be. But again, the building blocks around this movie are just fundamentally broken, and there's nothing else to be said about that. So, if you ended up enjoying this long review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One watch over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye!